Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. So my name is Liam Maroney, and I am the Demand Generation Manager here at NewsCred, and today I'm going to be taking you through a webinar on Google Analytics, and specifically how to set up your Content Hub to measure conversions. So this is going to be part one of a two-part webinar series, and today the agenda is essentially to define the goals so that you can actually set up goals in Google Analytics and identify the things that you want to record. And we're also going to take a little bit of a deep dive into GA so we can help you clean up your data sources and just to make sure that all of the data that's feeding those goals is as accurate as it possibly can be. In the second part of the series, we're going to get a little bit more granular, but for today, our ultimate goal is to establish your goal set, clean up your instance, and then we're actually going to set up a few goals as well and help you begin to measure them. So the webinar is set to last in and around 45 minutes, and for anyone who may feel that there's a lot being covered here, don't worry too much. This is actually based on a blog post, which we're going to follow up this webinar with a link to, and there's also going to be a recording of this webinar, and we're going to send this out to everybody as well as a slide share. So if you feel that you're not absorbing things too quickly, don't worry too much. We're going to have everything followed up afterwards, so just please feel free to sit back and enjoy it. So what I want to go into is just a quick overview. So this isn't an extreme deep dive into Google Analytics. So if you're not the primary user of GA, don't be too worried about this. What I want to try and do is just kind of set the stage for the different types of things we're going to be covering. So I'm going to take it at a very high level. So essentially what we're focusing on here in GA is four main buckets. So when you see the login to the GA screen, what you see highlighted here in the red box, these are the areas that we're going to be covering. And just to give you a very quick walkthrough for anyone who's not familiar with them, the four major buckets in GA for looking at traffic are audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. And the way to think about these is audience is essentially who are these people who are reading my content. And this is everything from demographic information, geographic information, all the way down to specific pieces of technology that they're using. The second one is acquisition, and this is essentially how are people getting to your content. So this is where you'll see all of your major channel information, referral, email, different sources, and such like that. Behavior is the actual things they do once they've reached the content. So this is the pages they view, the length of time that they're viewing it for, etc. And finally, conversions. This is the bit that's going to be very specific to us because this is the customized part of GA. This is where we actually set up our goals. This is where we're going to start recording information, and this is how we're going to use GA to actually identify the success of our content. So before we go into GA, what I want to spend a little time doing is going through goals as a concept and exactly how you go about identifying them, selecting them, and sort of setting them up in GA. So the very first question that a lot of people will be asking is, what exactly is a conversion goal and how do I choose one? So this is a broad question, and I think it catches a lot of people out because a lot of companies, particularly if you work in a B2C space, you may think that the goals that you're actually setting may not be applicable because you don't have a tangible way to record them, such as a lead database center. But that's why we want to try and get into this. So if I were to give a definition of what a content marketing goal is, a marketing goal essentially is a measurable action taken through your content that matters to your business. So this is a very broad statement, but the way I would look at this is as long as you can measure it in GA and as long as you can identify it and align it with things that matter to your business, this is going to be where you want to start. So I'm going to show you a few different types of goals out there, and we're going to break them down so you can get some inspiration. This is in no way a comprehensive view. There are definitely many more goals out there, but this will give you some direction on how to pick ones. So the first would be lead generation. This is one of the more tangible ones. This is any action that can be tracked back to creating a new lead within your database. So this is things from filling out a blog subscribe form. This is anyone who joins your newsletter database. This is some of the more hard ones like people filling out a sales demo request form. If you have a member area, this is people who become new signups. If you offer coupons or discounts, this is people who go through and redeem things through that area. On a transactional basis, these are things that are effectively an exchange between you and the reader or vice versa. So This could be, if you're lucky enough that you have an e-commerce section and you can track this, this is cart completions. If you have a resource section, this is people who are either requesting collateral, downloading white papers or ebooks, or if they're on the first section, then redeeming the coupons that you've gotten them to sign up for. The behavioral section this is a lot more applicable to the B2C space, but it also works as well if you happen to be a B2B customer who doesn't have a tech stack set up that allows you to measure leads directly if you're not yet connected to that tech stack. So what a behavioral goal is essentially it's something that's less sort of specific like a lead created or a transaction, but it is behavior that is an indicator of the success of the content. So you're looking for behavior that people are taking that leads them to a result that you want to record. So an example of this would be if they move from the content to a product detail page, if they move towards a pricing page, if you happen to have it on your site, or if you don't, if you have a corporate social responsibility page, perhaps they move from the content towards that. Even moving towards the corporate site in general, if you happen to have interactive elements on your site, such as like a store locator, or even just going to some of the About Us pages, learning more about the content, watching videos, things of this nature, anything where people take a specific action that you can track back to being important to your business. So once you've started to identify some of these goals and identify ones that may ladder up to your business objectives, one of the next best steps would actually be to map out the content journey. So mapping a content journey is essentially articulating the exact path that you want people to take, the ideal state that your content should result in. And mapping out your content journey isn't just for posterity. It actually allows you to create better goals. If you know the specific journey that you want to guide somebody through using your content, it allows you to identify ways that you can push them farther down and faster. So just to illustrate, this is an example of a lead journey that is specific to NewsCred. So we take a very top-down approach. And at the very top of this, we have page views. And obviously, this is where we want people to read our content on our Insights Hub. And the next stage, the goal that we begin to record, is subscriptions based off of those page views. So we want people to sign up for our newsletter. We want them to become readers. We want them to become returning visitors. And once we have those readers, we want to upsell them to higher value pieces of content. So this is our secondary goal. And this is going from being a newsletter reader to becoming, attending a webinar such as this one, downloading high value pieces of content, or becoming a member of Insights. And for us, this puts them in a state where we can actually then record them and we can score them using our predictive lead scoring technology. And then this is where we push them down the funnel. We can actually track them back to being specific MQLs using our marketing automation software and then passing them off and ultimately becoming opportunities. So this is one example of a state, but once you articulate the journey that you want them to take, it allows you to actually build a model, and it allows you to identify how many goals are needed to get them to the ultimate state. So before I go into the actual GA instance, I just want to do a quick recap on the goal setting, because we're going to come back to this a little later on when we set up one of our first goals. So the first step is defining the goals. And this is just establishing what it is that you want your content to achieve, and if you can attach it towards measurable analytics in GA. And this is where we're going to pick different goal types, whether it's lead generator, whether it's transactional, whether it's a behavioral goal. All of these things will then ladder up and you'll be able to create them later. And then when possible, it's worth mapping out a content journey so that you can actually establish how you want people to go, what the ideal state for them to reach is through your content. So now that we've done a little bit on the goals, I want to actually go into GA and I want to start going through the content that's in there and cleaning it up. So what we're going to do in this stage is this is designed to help us clean up different channels and remove and feed Google bits of information in order to give it the most accurate possible sort of outcome for your traffic. So the question that you're possibly thinking right now is, what is wrong with my Google Analytics data? And the answer to this is, Google is very, very good at identifying channels. It's very good at taking sources of content and attributing them to categories. But there is an area where it doesn't have full context. This is where you want to tell it things that are specific to your business or specific to your traffic that it wouldn't inherently know. And we're going to go through these in detail, but there's three things that I want to cover in here. One is identifying your referral traffic and ensuring that it's actually accurate, looking at our other channels and ensuring they're accurate, and then ultimately what I want to do is I want to group out the segments on your website in order to help Google understand what the different segments represent, and that'll give you further insights into the actual pieces of content. So if we jump straight into the referral traffic is basically traffic that has come from a third-party domain towards your traffic. So if somebody linked to your piece of content from their site, from their blog, from wherever it happened to be, and directs it towards your traffic, Google is going to bundle that under referral. So just to give you a visual idea of how this typically works is when you have, Google will look for different domain names, and anyone who is not within its known channels, such as organic search, if it's not a search engine, if it's not from a social network, generally speaking, it will bundle these into a referral category. And this works most of the time, but the reason that it doesn't always work correctly is because there is a nuance that it doesn't know. So there's sort of a blind spot in Google Analytics, and this is that Google doesn't know if the domain that's pointing towards your channel happens to be a domain that you also own. And it also doesn't know if the URL is specific to something that you may already know about, such as like if there's a specific URL coming from one of your marketing automation software or your email client. So without that knowledge, it starts to look at it and think that it is looking at another referral traffic. This may not sound particularly troublesome, but I'm going to show you very quickly here. We're going to go into Google Analytics here. And this is a standard Google Analytics instance. This is actually the dummy account for Google, which they released about 2 weeks ago, which I would strongly encourage you to play around with, especially if you don't have a fully fleshed out GA instance. This is all real data that's backfilled from the Google Merchandise Store. It'll give you a full ability to walk through everything. So we're going to use this as our instance. So as I was mentioning earlier, we're going through the 4 basic areas down here: audience acquisition, behavior, and conversions. So for the case of referral traffic, we're looking at acquisition because we want to know how people got to our site. So if we go into the overview section for this instance, we're going to see referral traffic here. Now, if you look at the referral numbers compared to the total, you can see that referral actually represents more than 10% of the entire traffic, which on the surface sounds very positive. And we'll get into this a little later, but if you look at the conversion rate of that channel, it's considerably higher for the goals that GA has set up than any of the other channels. If you were looking at this and you were taking this at face value, this is the channel you would want to be facing all of your strategy towards. But if we drill into the referral channel, the thing that I want you to notice is that the first 4 of the top 10 sources of traffic are all coming from Google's own domains. And one of them, the mall.googleplex.com, actually represents 63.5% of all of the referral traffic that's within this channel right now. And what that means is that these channels, which are owned properties, are actually completely changing the numbers. And when you see the conversion rates on them, these are converting much higher than all of the others, which means that you're getting a false reading. In reality, these should be bundled under own traffic because that's what you want to be able to separate out from the rest. Because this information is distorting the numbers so much, you actually are missing out on the actual ones that are really down towards the bottom, the real referral sources. So the way we clean this up is pretty simple. We go into the admin section of Google Analytics, and I'm going to go into our own instance on here to show you. So if we go into the admin section, you have a section down here at the bottom called Channel Settings on the bottom right. And if you click into Channel Settings and into the channel grouping, it's going to bring up your default channel grouping. And if we edit into here, it's going to bring up a listing of all of the different channels that are listed when you go into this area. And you'll see referral traffic down here. What we're going to do is we're going to click the pen on the right, and we're going to open it up. Now, the standard way you'll see this is it will say system-defined channel matches referral. This is Google's way of saying, based on our algorithm and our knowledge of referral traffic, anything that is defined as channel for referral gets put in here. What we want to do in here is we want to add additional pieces of information to tell Google to either add or subtract domains from this that it may not be including. So in our case, I'm asking Google to not include anything containing go.newscred.com and newscred.com. In our case, what this is I'm trying to get it to remove anything that is the corporate domain and anything that comes from our Marketo instance. This is the URL that it uses. So by including these, it's going to exclude them in future. The one thing to bear in mind here is that if you exclude traffic from a particular channel, such as this one, what you have to do is you have to make sure to tell Google where to put that in another channel. If you don't, what you end up getting is it will actually identify it under the category of other because it doesn't know where to put it within its known channels. So what you want to do is if you're doing this and you decide to tell it don't put it in here, in our case, this is email traffic that has been misattributed as a referral. So what we're going to do is you go into the channel that you want it to be included in and you tell the opposite to Google. Instead of not contain it in referral, we're going to ask you to contain it within this. And Google will pull it from a list of drop-downs. So you will know if it's correct. It will drop them for you so you can identify them as they go in. So once you've done that and once you've cleaned this up, it's not going to retroactively change any information. So historical information that is attributed under the referral channel is going to stay as it was tagged, but any future traffic is going to change. So bear that in mind that it will not change anything that was previous. So if I go back to our page now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go through the other channels. So now that we've done our referral traffic, we're going to also look through some of the key channels that also need some exposure. So typically Google is very good at identifying organic traffic. It's very good at identifying social traffic for the most part. And it's also very good at doing AdWords. There are some areas where it tends to miss out on things, and this is dependent on a lot of different factors. The ones that I want to look at really are the email, social, owned, and other. So in the case of email, this is very heavily dependent on your use of UTMs. If you're very diligent and everything is tracked as source of email, most often than not, it will capture it. If you ever made any mistakes or if there was something specific to a campaign or anything, sometimes these can get missed if it's out of your control. So what we want to do is we want to go in and do the same exercise as the referral channel, but we want to exclude or include particular UTMs. And the advice I would give on a lot of this is to actually go through the channels, specifically the other, the referral, the social, and just look for things that don't look correct. And if you do, once you go through this exercise once, you'll know going forward that all of your existing channels are going to be clean. So once we've done this exercise, what I want to do now is I want to do content groupings. And content groupings at a simple level is segmenting out the site so that you're able to look at different statistics on it through a very focused lens. And just to show you visually what this means, on your Content Hub, you most likely have different categories that are very different in the way people interact with them. So you may have blog posts and you have separate topics that exist underneath each blog post. You may have a resources section, high-value content. This could be anything from white papers, a video section, webinars like this one. And you also likely have things like conversion pages. These may be where you sign up, where you join to become a member, contact us pages, coupons, things of that nature. So the way we want to do this is we want to actually be able to tell Google to separate these out so that we can look at them differently in future. And I'm going to give you a real example of how this looks. So if we go back and I show you on our own instance of Insights, we have a topic section and we have audience, industry leaders, inspiration. These are all different categories of our blog. And it will be very helpful to see these when I report in Google Analytics. But inherently, Google doesn't know it, so I have to teach it to do that. We also have resources sections. We have our login sections. Everything is separate, so the goal is to try and break these out within Google Analytics. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So if we go back into our admin section, and I just get out of there, you have another section here called Content Grouping. So if I go into the content grouping section, for this instance, I have nothing set up. So we're going to be starting from scratch on this one to make it nice and easy. So we're going to set up a new content grouping, and we're going to name it on the top level. So in this case, I'm looking for blog topics. Now there's different ways of segmenting at the site. Some of them involve putting codes on the site, and that is difficult in a lot of cases. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a rule set, which is a lot more simple than it sounds. So I'm going to choose my first topic. So in the case of my one, I'm going to do audience. Now, when I'm looking at audience as a topic, it has a very specific URL. So it's topics and audience. So this is what I want to feed to GA to know to capture this. So I'm going to call it audience. And I'm going to tell it that the page should contain topics, and it will automatically find it, and I'm looking for audience. So now once I do this, and I hit done, this is now a segment. And I'm going to do the same for each individual one, and I'm going to create a full segmented grouping inside GA. So I won't go through all of these, but I'll show you what the end result of this looks like. So if we go back in, what we're going to do now is, because we're looking at what people do, we're looking at it through the lens of behavior. So if I go to my behavior section of this dummy account, and I go in and I want to look at all pages. Typically when you go into this report, and what you'll see here is it's going to give you a list of all the pages underneath this instance based on the order that you sort it. But what I want to do is I want to group them. So as it happens on this one, because this is a retail store, they do have channel groupings, and they have different ones. So we're going to look at the product categories. As soon as you choose a content grouping, suddenly it is now bundling them in accordance with the categories that you chose. So this is very useful from a content perspective, because if you tag all of your content underneath these, this will be able to show you on a topical level which pieces of content theme-wise are resonating most with your audience. And you can as well, because it's GA, drill into any one of these. And here we go. And it will show you all of the pages that are underneath that category. And because it's Google, there are different ways of spinning this information. It is a giant pivot table. You can break it down by page title. So this is a very useful exercise to help set up your instance. If you don't happen to have software such as ours to actually content group, GA will help you do that and will give you very interesting information. And you can look at sources that are going towards it, whether time on site varies by category, and it's going to give you a lot of insight into your content at a more granular level. So that's what content grouping is. And if you do this, this is going to be one of the more useful things, because going forward, you'll always be able to look at things purely within a category. So it's going to exclude noise such as landing pages, thank you pages, certain pages that may get a lot of traffic that distort your numbers. So before we go into the goals, I just want to do a really quick recap on what we just went through in here. So the goal of this section was to clean up the referral traffic. And the reason I highlighted referral over the other ones was because the referral channel is a very strong indicator of the resonance of your content. The more referral traffic you're bringing in from your content, the more backlinks you're generating, is a very strong indicator to the types of content that's working and the types of audiences that you're reaching. So by cleaning this up, it's going to give you valuable traffic information, and it's going to help strategize about which referral sources you should be focusing your attention on. Below that, the channel cleanup, this is very useful, because if you're getting a false reading on your channels, it's going to help. You're going to build bad strategy based off that. So once you clean that up, you're going to have an accurate vision of how traffic gets to your site, and you're going to be able to strategize against that. And then thirdly, the content grouping is just a very valuable way of looking at your content in GA through the lens of topic and section and purpose of content. So now that we've got a clean instance and we've got reliable information, what we're going to do is we're actually going to start creating some goals. So we've gone through the process of exactly what types of goals to do. We're going to go through it now through the lens of how it works within Google Analytics. So setting up a goal in GA sounds complicated when you see it first, but it's actually pretty intuitive. But there's some things that are just worth noting. There are 4 basic types of Google goal types. And though we're not going to use all of them, I just want to give you a highlight of what they are so you understand them. So one type, there is a destination goal. And a destination goal is the one that we're going to focus on most. A destination is basically telling Google that I want you to go to a specific location, a specific page, a URL, or a group of pages, and record every time somebody hits that specific URL. Duration is what it sounds like, the amount of time spent on site. This is valuable if you were interested in engagement. If you wanted to know how long people are spending, and any time someone spends longer than a predetermined amount of time, you want Google to record that. Pages per visit is the same. If you wanted to know how many people are reading multiple pieces of content, if that was a metric that was valuable to you, you could record that using a goal. An event is a slightly more complicated one, but an event sometimes requires a little bit of coding. But what it is, you're looking to track specific elements on the site. If you were looking for how many people downloaded a piece of content, clicked on a share button, clicked on a video, anything that resulted in an event happening on page that isn't changing the URL of that page. So for the purpose of this, we're going to focus mainly on the destination goals, because this is the one that requires the least amount of technical input. It doesn't require any changing of code on the page, and ultimately it's just an easier and quicker one to set up. So we're going to go back in, and we're going to look at goals here. So setting up a goal, you go back into your admin section, and you're going to see goals. Now when you go in here, you're just going to create a new goal, and you're going to name it. So in the case that we want to do, I want to record everybody who visits a thank you page. So you're going to see the 4 basic goal types, and it gives you examples of each just as a reminder. In my case, I want to do a destination goal. So once I've chosen my goal type, I click continue. And this is where it looks a bit off-putting, but it's actually pretty simple. So you've got destination, and it's going to ask you to put in a URL. Now, if it's something that's under your own domain, you don't need to put in the full URL. You just need to put in everything from the / onwards. So in our case, I'm going to put in thank you. Now, if you're ever wondering if you've set up a goal correctly, Google actually has a verify this goal option. So if you click this, it's going to give you a percentage of the traffic that results in this goal. If it seems small, don't be too concerned about it, especially when it's something very specific that involves a multiple-step process. Those numbers are going to be low, but as long as it's not 0, that's a pretty good indicator that at least you're close to the accuracy of it. You can attach a value to this if you knew the specific value of someone who filled out a form. If you had metrics that supported that it resulted in a dollar outcome, you can attach this and it will report it for you. There's also a funnel stage. Now this is a very useful one, and it's not that complicated, but it can be very powerful, and we're going to see an example of this in a few minutes. So what a funnel is if a stage requires more than one step. If I had one thank you page that came from multiple sources, and I wanted to only focus on one of those sources, you can do that using a funnel. So in my case, perhaps it is the contact page, and I want people who go to the thank you page to have first gone to the contact page. And you can make this a required step so that it will only record a goal if somebody starts on the contact page and then results in the thank you page. And this is what is known as a funnel goal. And then all you do is you essentially save this goal and you set it up and choose. Once you save it, you're just going to choose to record it, and then that's when it's going to start recording in GA. So to give an example of what a goal actually looks like, we're going to go in here. So actually, let me go back and go through the highlight of them first before I do. So when you're viewing a goal, I'm going to focus on 4 main types of goals here. The reason I'm going to do this is there's a lot of different ways to look at information in GA, and I don't want to overload you with information. So I'm picking 4 different areas that I think are the most high-impact reports that are going to inform your content marketing. In the second part of our series, we're going to go a bit more deeply into these, but these are the ones we're going to go through. We're going to go through the overview, which is just a very high-level view of the goals page and understanding how to look at the data. And then we're going to look at a funnel visualization. Now, this is where that multi-step process, I'm going to show you how to analyze that information. There's also a goal flow. This is watching the journeys that the people have taken to get to your goal. And this is going to help inform your strategy. And the multi-channel funnel is a way of getting more understanding of the multi-touch attribution of your goals. So if we go back to our goals, if you go down, so again, the goals now comes from the conversion section, which is the customized section. Now, there are lots of different ways. In this case, I'm going to go to the overview of the goals. So you have an option to look at the different types of goals in here, and in this case, there's several ones for the Google store. And we're going to look at purchase completion. Now, this is more of an e-commerce related one, but this is how it works. Essentially, it looks the same as any of your other typical reports. It's going to give you trends. You can spin this in any way you want. If you had assigned a dollar value, it will attribute that and actually aggregate the amount of money over a set period of time. Now, it also gives you a completed rate and an abandonment rate. Now, this is dependent on whether it's a funnel or a single path one, but the conversion rate is the amount of people of the total volume of people visiting who ended up resulting in that goal. And the abandonment rate is for funnels of anyone who began the process of one of your goals but did not complete it. So this is your general overview. So the next stage that I'm going to go to is I want to go through a funnel visualization. So if you happen to have a multi-stage funnel, this is what you'll get. This shows each different stage within that, and it shows the amount of people that entered. It shows the amount of people that bounced from it. It shows you a conversion rate from stage. So in this case, it's people who started up their cart, filled out their billing and shipping information, entered their payment, reviewed their payment, and then ultimately completed their purchase. And then this will give you a conversion rate through the funnel. So this is very useful information, especially if you have a complex journey that you want to take people on. It's going to expose any areas within that journey that may need to be revisited, any areas that have weak points in them. And it's going to give you some tangible conversion rates, which are always good for reporting. So this is one instance of looking at how people interacted in your funnel. What we want to do is we want to look at the goal flow. So the goal flow is just beneath it. And the goal flow is a visual way of reporting on people who actually get through to a goal. So this can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's actually a really, really interesting way of looking at your data. So this shows the visual journey through, and you pick your goal, and you can break this down in virtually any way you want. You can look at it through sources. You can look at it through traffic type. You can look at it through your content grouping if you have those as well. So what it does is it will show you the numbers that go from source through. The red is your abandonment rate, so it will show you where people are exiting, and you can view it all the way through. Now, if you want to look at it through a specific source, you can drill into everything here. So you can highlight traffic that goes through, and this is where you start to see the really intricate steps that people can go through. Or you can look at only this segment, and it'll actually drill down into that one and exclude all the other ones. And it will look at it through the lens of a particular source. So this is everything you can hover over here. There are tool tips. So you can look at it from a very, very granular point of view, but also it gives you a great way of visualizing that. So this is a goal flow, and this is a great tool if you want to report on journeys. And the last one that I want to show you here is I want to show you the multi-channel one. So if you click on multi-channel funnels and overview, it's going to give you a very similar report to the last one. It's going to give you all the same impression. But when you scroll down further, what you're going to see is you're going to see this really fun Venn diagram. So this is showing you the percentage of conversions that included a combination of channels. And this is one of those really powerful tools, because if you're looking through the lens that you know, and you can exclude and you can change these whatever way you want, but what you learn is that if you wanted to look at how many people come from each channel, you can look at the total volume, but you can also look at the amount and percentages that required more than one channel to do it. And you can drill down as far as 4 to see if there's ones that involve all 4. And one of the valuable parts of this is this shows you that it's never a good idea to focus only on the top channel and exclude all of the other ones, because what you may not realize is that there is overlap and there are dependencies between different channels. So being able to spin this data and being able to run it and visualize it is a very powerful way of showing that it is a holistic approach and it is a combination of multiple factors. So if we go back to our deck, I want to just do a recap on all the things that we've gone through, because we have covered a lot of different elements here. So the first one is defining the goals. And what we did in this section was just to look over exactly what a goal is in terms of Google Analytics and how do we go about solving that, and all of the different types of goals that can measure up to your business. So once you have your goals in mind, it's important to make sure that your traffic is actually reporting accurate information, because otherwise you're going to be reporting on bad data. And this is one of those cases of garbage in and garbage out. So the process in this section was clearing up the important channels, which in our case was the referral channel, which was a hugely important element in understanding how people get to your content, and then making sure that the channels that direct towards your content are clean as well, because you want to be able to identify your email channels, whether or not it's an owned property, social channels, etc. And then the third thing we did there was to create content groupings, which was to segment out the site to be able to look at it through the lens of a specific section. So you can look at the level at a more granular level and to be able to filter out the noise of anything that wasn't content related. And then the third thing we did was setting up goals in GA. And this was building out an actual goal from start to finish, whether it was a multi-step goal and then looking at different ways of reporting it. So there are different ways, whether it was the direct overview page, the multi-channel funnels, the goal flow, and the actual paths people took. So there was a lot of information in here, and we're going to be following up on this webinar with a copy of this, plus we're going to do a link to the actual blog post that we had. And we're going to give you a copy of this on SlideShare as well. So there was a lot in here, so please don't worry if you didn't feel that you caught up with it. We're going to follow up with everything on here. And if you do have any specific questions, please contact us, send us any messages, like email us or send us messages on Twitter, because we want to keep this conversation going. And we want to try and see if there's anything that anyone wants incorporated into the second part, because we want to make sure this is as valuable as possible. And the one thing that I just want to leave you with is that the industry has changed now, and the goal is no longer to be good at content. The goal is to be good at business by using content. So everything that we do, we want to try and ladder them up to actually tangible metrics that matter to your business as a whole. And if we can do that, it gets us closer and closer to proving out ROI and actually giving you metrics that you can report to your CMO and CEO. So I hope this was useful. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. And please do contact us if you want to reach out to us on Twitter. You can use the handle @newscred. If you want to talk to us and tag anything, please use the hashtag #ThinkContent. And I really appreciate everyone coming by, and I look forward to hearing the comments. So thank you very much.